Hello, friends. I'm a storyteller. I know you're here to escape the chaos of the world and drift into a peaceful night. But tonight's stories, they're not just here to calm your mind. They're here to pull you into a deeper, darker place. Relax. Find your coziest spot and close your eyes. Let the sound of the rain wash away the weight of your day. Please, subscribe and comment below. Where are you watching from? Your country? And what time are you watching this video? Why? Because these stories are woven just for you. Now, let's start. Story 1. The still water doesn't lie. This is not just another scary story for sleep. It happened to me, and I still hear the whispers beneath the veil. I moved to Vale Lake to rest. That was the plan. Small town, still water, silence. Just what I needed. My name's Noah. I used to work in New York. Long hours, no sleep, big money, small life. When my doctor said, "You need to slow down," I listened. So I packed my bags, left the city, and drove north. The real estate guy said the cabin was cheap because it was too quiet. I thought perfect, but I didn't ask why he said it like that. The first night was peaceful, just the rain and the lake. I slept better than I had in years. Then, the second night came at 2 a.m. I woke up, no reason, just opened my eyes. The room was dark, no sound, not even the rain, just stillness. Then I heard it. Bloop. A soft ripple, like something dropped into water. I sat up, no wind, no movement, but the sound came again. Bloop. Closer. I looked at the lake through the window. Black screen, no light. But I felt something out there. Watching. I told myself it was nothing. Just my brain tired and twitchy. The next morning I walked to the dock. The lake looked calm, still, but not peaceful. It felt fake, like a picture of water, not real water. Then I saw them. Tiny bubbles, right below the surface, rising in a line, leading away from the dock. I followed them with my eyes. They stopped near the center of the lake. That's when I noticed the fog. It wasn't there before, just hovering, right above the same spot. Back inside, I made coffee. Tried to shake the feeling. Told myself again, nothing's wrong, just rest. I opened my laptop, typed in Vale Lake Legends. I got one result. They say something lives beneath the lake. It whispers your name, but not in your voice. I closed the laptop. Stupid, just stories. I came here to rest, not read some paranormal story. That night the rain returned. Soft, steady. I made tea, grabbed a blanket, and sat by the fire. But the sound came again. Bloop. I froze. Then, silence. I waited. Bloop. Louder. Closer. The power cut out. Black screen. Just rain. And water. I lit a candle. The flame flickered fast, like it was scared too. Then I heard my name. Noah. It came from outside. A whisper. Slow. Wrong. I stepped to the window. Nothing. Just fog. But I saw movement. Something shifted in the water. I stepped back. Noah. Again. Closer. I didn't sleep that night. Next morning, I went to town. Vale Grocery. Only store within miles. The man at the counter had cloudy eyes and a calm voice. "You're the one at the lake," he said. I nodded. "Yeah, cabin 9. He didn't smile. "Don't go swimming," I blinked. "Excuse me?" He bagged my stuff. Still water ain't always empty. That night I didn't light a fire, didn't make tea, just sat by the window watching the lake. I wanted to leave, but something told me, don't. So I stayed. At 3 a.m., I heard it again. Splash. Different this time. Not small. Heavy. Like someone jumped in. I rushed to the door. Opened it. The dock was empty, but wet footprints led from the lake. To my porch. I followed them with my eyes. They stopped at my doormat and vanished. I locked the door. Every window. Sat in the corner of the room. Tried to breathe. Tried to rest. Then the whisper returned. From inside the house. Noah. Low. Cold. I turned my head. Nothing. Noah. Behind me I spun. Still nothing. I whispered back. What do you want? No answer. Just silence. Rain. And something wet moving across the floor. At dawn I packed my things, opened the front door. But the lake wasn't there. It was fog. Thick. Endless. I stepped outside, couldn't see 5 feet ahead, but I heard it. Water bloop, bloop, bloop like a heartbeat, alive. Then something moved inside the fog. I ran back inside, but the door wouldn't close. Something held it open. I pulled hard, felt resistance. Then it let go. The door slammed shut. I locked it. Every bolt. Every latch. Later that day, I found an old photo. In the cabin, a family standing by the lake, on the back written in red ink, "The Veil never forgets." I didn't sleep that night either. I sat by the candle, watching, listening, and the whisper returned. But this time, it wasn't just my name. It said, "Come back. We remember you." I stared at the lake until sunrise. The fog still there. The whisper still soft. And the water? Still. But not sleeping. Never sleeping. I couldn't sleep after what I saw at the lake. That face, Anna's face, reflected on the surface. But distorted, pale, almost pleading. It vanished the moment I blinked. Was it a trick of the water? A leftover dream? Or something worse? I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Just still water. Just moonlight. But something had changed. I felt it. Beneath the surface. The next morning I made coffee, sat at the window, watched the lake. It was calm. Too calm. No ducks, no ripples, just that flat, still mirror. Anna still hadn't texted back. That wasn't like her, she always answered, even with just a K. But now, nothing. I stared at the screen of my phone. Black screen. No signal. No updates. Just silence. I decided to go out. Maybe clear my head. I walked down to the dock. Every step echoed in my ears. Crunch. Crunch. The air felt thick like fog. But there was no fog. Then I saw it again. A ripple. One. Then two. Then the face. Anna's. Only this time, her eyes were open, wide, unblinking. Her mouth moved. She was whispering something, but I couldn't hear it. I leaned in closer. Still can't hear. Then I fell. The dock slipped under me. Or maybe I slipped. Either way, I crashed into the lake. Cold, dark, deep. I opened my eyes underwater. I expected bubbles, mud, fish. Instead, I saw stairs. Stone steps leading downward, right beneath the lake. I blinked. Gone. No stairs, just darkness. I climbed out, coughing, soaked, shivering. My phone buzzed. Finally, one message from Anna. It said, "Don't look at the water." I froze. My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Where are you?" Are you okay? No reply. Another buzz. This time, a photo. I tapped it open. It showed me standing at the dock. From behind, my wet clothes, my exact posture, but no one was there to take it. Just water, still water. That night I locked all the doors, closed the curtains, sat on the floor. I thought I heard footsteps outside, then a knock. Once, twice, then silence. My breathing grew shallow. Whispered, "Anna," no answer. Then, my phone buzzed again. Voice message. I played it. Whispers, soft, wet, like someone speaking through water. One word repeated. Below, below, below. The next morning I had a choice. Run or go deeper. I chose the second. I packed a flashlight, waterproof boots, and a notebook. I needed answers. I went back to the dock, but I didn't stop there. I followed the shoreline to the far edge of the lake where the trees grow thicker and the light barely reaches. And there I found it, an old shack, half sunk, hidden under vines. No windows, just one door, slightly open. I stepped inside. It smelled like rot and mold and something wet. In the middle of the shack, a hole, circular, perfect, and filled with water, not lake water. This was darker. Still, silent. I shined my light in. It didn't reflect, just absorbed, like a black screen swallowing the beam. And then, sound. Jake. It was Anna's voice. But how? I leaned closer. My hand shook. I called back. "Anna, are you in there?" Silence. Then bubbles. Then a hand reached up from the hole. Pale. Wet. Shaking. I stumbled backward. Fell. But the hand didn't follow. It just hung there. Then sank back in. Gone. I ran home. This was not just another scary story for sleep. It was real. It was happening to me. I wrote down everything, every detail. I needed to remember, needed proof, but that night, it got worse. The water came to me. I woke up, and my bed was soaked, dripping wet. My shoes floated in the hallway. I checked every pipe, every tap, all dry. Only my room was wet. The ceiling, dry. The floor, soaked. And on my window, written in the condensation, "Come back." I couldn't sleep, so I stayed up. Watched old tapes Anna and I made. Campfires, road trips, the lake. In one clip, she was laughing, spinning in the water. I paused the video. Her face froze. And behind her, a shape. Tall. Thin. Watching. I never noticed it before. In every video. At the lake. It's there. Behind her. Watching. The next day, I met someone. An old man at the diner. He saw my soaked clothes and said, "You saw her, didn't you?" I paused. "Who?" "The girl in the water." My heart dropped. He leaned in, whispered, "They say the lake keeps memories. The dead ones. It shows you what you lost, but not to help, to pull you in." I asked, "Anna's not dead." He nodded slowly. "Maybe not yet. Now I'm scared to sleep because every time I close my eyes I see that hole, that black pit, and I hear the whispers. Below, below, and Anna's voice getting closer. This is no dream. This is my life now, a paranormal story with no end. Still water, still voices, still her face, waiting beneath. The day had been oddly quiet. The sunlight filtered through the trees in soft golden beams, casting long shadows across the lake. But that evening something felt off. I couldn't explain it, but the air felt heavier, thick with an unease I couldn't shake. I found myself standing at the edge of the water again, staring at the ripples that seemed to move in ways they shouldn't. The lake had always been peaceful, serene even. Yet tonight the stillness was unnerving. The sky above was slowly darkening, and the gentle breeze that had been keeping the air cool now carried a chill that made my skin prickle. I tried to calm my racing thoughts, reminding myself that everything was just fine. But then, as I watched, the water began to swirl in an unnatural pattern, as if something beneath the surface was shifting. Something large, something alive. My heart skipped a beat. "Stop overthinking," I muttered to myself, stepping back. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, my eyes were drawn to the water again. I needed to see what was causing this. I knelt down, my fingers brushing the cool surface. There was no sound, no warning. Suddenly, a sharp gasp escaped my lips. The water parted just enough for me to glimpse something. A dark shape, smooth, almost like glass, hovered just beneath the surface. It was just out of reach, but I felt its presence like a weight pressing down on my chest. I pulled my hand back quickly, feeling the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. What was that? I glanced around. No one was near. The wood stood silent. I had to be imagining it, but the image of that shape haunted me. I needed answers, but I didn't know how to find them. As I stood there, conflicted, a sudden rustling in the trees caught my attention. My pulse quickened. I turned sharply, but saw nothing, only the wind playing tricks with the branches. I shook my head, trying to dispel the tension creeping up my spine. "Get a grip," I whispered. I started walking away, but something in the water called me back. I hesitated, feeling as though I was on the brink of uncovering something I wasn't ready to face, but curiosity got the better of me. I returned to the water's edge. This time I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, its flashlight weak but enough to guide my gaze. I shone the light over the water, my hand trembling slightly. The beam of light barely cut through the darkening water. But then I saw it again, closer this time. The shape. It was unmistakable. There was something beneath the surface, something large and moving. I staggered back, my breath coming faster now. My mind screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen, unable to tear my eyes away. The shape grew clearer as it shifted under the water, darker, sharper, more defined. Then a sound, a low, almost imperceptible hum, echoed from the depths of the lake. It wasn't natural. It was wrong. Something was calling me, pulling me closer. My feet moved on their own, stepping closer to the water. I felt myself slipping into a trance, the water beckoning me. Then, just as I was about to reach out again, a voice, a soft whisper, cut through the silence. "Don't touch it." I whipped around, my heart hammering in my chest, but no one was there. The whisper, barely audible, came from the trees behind me. It was faint, yet clear. My body froze. My breathing was shallow, each breath coming quicker than the last. I looked around frantically, but the woods were empty. The air was still. No one had been there. The whisper echoed again, but this time it sounded almost like it came from the very water itself. "Don't touch it." I backed away slowly, my eyes still locked on the surface of the lake. The shape under the water shifted, once more closer, as if it had been watching me the entire time. I knew then that whatever was beneath the surface was no longer just a figment of my imagination. It was real, and it wanted something from me. I wanted to turn and run, but I felt as though the very ground beneath me was pulling me down. It wasn't just the water that was dangerous now. There was something far darker at play, something older, something that had been waiting for me. The air grew thick with a palpable tension, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw the water shift again, this time forming the faint outline of a face staring back at me from beneath the dark surface. My blood ran cold. I wanted to scream, to flee, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The whisper grew louder, now a soft chant, repeating the same words over and over. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. With a surge of panic, I finally broke free from the trance. I turned and ran as fast as I could, my legs burning, the woods around me a blur. The whisper still echoed in my mind, and the feeling of being watched didn't leave me. I knew I wasn't alone. As I stumbled through the underbrush, my heart pounding in my chest, I had a terrifying realization. Whatever had been lurking beneath the lake wasn't just a threat to me. It had been waiting, watching, and now it would follow. The sun had long disappeared, and the world around me seemed to fall into an unnatural silence. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being followed, that someone, was out there in the darkness. My every step was heavy, the weight of unseen eyes pressing against my back. I couldn't shake the image of that face, that watery face, staring up at me from beneath the lake. It haunted me, just as the whispering voice had. I had returned to my cabin, but it felt wrong. The air inside was stale, the silence deafening. I tried to distract myself, picking up my phone to call someone, anyone, but the screen flickered and went black. The power was out. Another wave of dread rolled over me. I was alone, completely alone, in a cabin miles away from anyone. But then I heard it. A low hum at first, like the sound of something being dragged through the water. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. The hum grew louder, accompanied by a soft scraping sound, like something large and heavy moving just beneath the surface of the lake. It was coming closer. I stood up, my body trembling. The air had grown thick again like it had before, and the house felt smaller, like it was closing in on me. My breath quickened. I could feel the coldness creeping into my bones. The door slammed open. I didn't know how long I stood there, frozen, staring at the silhouette that stood in the doorway. It was tall, far too tall for a person. The shadows twisted around it, and in the dim light I could barely make out its form. But I could feel its presence, feel the way the air shifted as it moved closer. I should have screamed. I should have run. But instead I was frozen in place, staring into the darkness. The whispering voice came again, but it wasn't from the water this time. It was here, in the room with me. Don't touch it. The voice was barely a whisper, yet it felt like a scream in my mind. My thoughts were clouded, a swirling mess of confusion and fear. I knew I had to leave, but my body refused to obey. I was rooted to the spot. Then the silhouette moved, its shape shifting, pulling itself together like it was made from the shadows themselves. Slowly, it began to take form, a grotesque image of something human, but not quite. Its eyes were empty, dark, and hollow, staring at me as though it had known me all my life. I tried to speak, but no words came out. I wanted to scream, to shout for help, but nothing happened. The only sound was the hum, louder now, reverberating through my bones. Come closer. The voice whispered again, but this time it wasn't the voice of the water. It was the voice of something much older, something that had been waiting for. This moment I felt a sudden, overwhelming compulsion to move, to approach whatever it was. I took a step forward, then another, the pull becoming impossible to resist. My body moved against my will, my feet dragging me closer to the figure in the doorway. But just before I reached it, something inside me snapped. The voice, the whispering, the water. It all flooded my mind. I remembered the lake, the face beneath the surface, and the warning that had been given to me. Don't touch it. I couldn't let it happen again. I turned and ran, my legs pumping beneath me as I fled from the cabin and into the night. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the stillness of the woods, but the hum, it never stopped. It followed me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. As I ran deeper into the woods, the trees seemed to close in on me, the branches clawing at my skin. The air grew colder, the shadows longer, and all the while that haunting whisper grew louder, filling my head. It was close now, too close. I stumbled, tripping over a root, but I pushed myself up and kept running. There was no escape. The darkness was everywhere now. It was in the trees, in the air, and in the ground beneath my feet. The whisper was all around me, mocking me, beckoning me. And then, just as I thought I couldn't go any further, I saw it. A light, faint but real, cutting through the trees. A cabin. Not mine, but someone else's. I ran toward it, my breath ragged, my heart hammering in my chest. I reached the door and pounded on it with all my strength. My knuckles bled from the impact, but I didn't care. I just needed to get inside. I had to. The door opened and a man stood there, his eyes wide with confusion. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice shaky. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut behind me. The room went dark, and then I heard it again. The hum. Louder than ever. It was inside. I knew it was too late. The darkness was here, and it was never going to let me go. Story 2. The phenomenon of the floating house. A journey beyond. There are moments in life that stretch the boundaries of reality, where what you thought was impossible becomes an undeniable truth. This was one of those moments. I had always been skeptical about the strange stories my grandfather used to tell me. He was a man of few words, but when he spoke about the floating house, his eyes would light up in a way that made me question the world I thought I knew. "It exists," he'd say. "It's not a dream, not a myth, it's real. You just have to be chosen." For years I laughed off his tales, thinking them nothing more than the ramblings of an old man with too much time on his hands. But when I found myself standing in the middle of a forgotten town, staring at a house that seemed to float just above the ground, I could no longer deny it. The house was like nothing I had ever seen. It hovered a few feet above the earth, suspended by an invisible force, as if gravity had decided to take the day off. The surrounding landscape was barren, lifeless, a vast expanse of cracked earth and dead trees. Yet the house stood untouched, as though it had existed in that state for centuries. I had arrived here on an impulse, a distant memory, a nagging curiosity, and the need to understand something that had always been just out of reach. There was no road leading to the house, no sign to indicate its existence. It was simply there, waiting for me. I walked closer, my steps hesitant at first, but as I neared the house, something inside me urged me to continue. The air felt thick, heavy with the weight of something I couldn't quite place. I could feel the ground beneath my feet, solid yet somehow distant, as though the house existed in a place that wasn't quite the same as the one I stood in. As I reached the base of the house, I looked up at the foundation, solid, yet suspended. The house seemed to breathe with a quiet, rhythmic pulse as if it were alive. The windows, dark and empty, stared back at me, and I couldn't help but feel like they were watching me, waiting. I knew I had to go inside. The door opened as I reached for it, as though it had been expecting me. I stepped into the darkness, the threshold of this strange, floating home. The air inside was stale, yet oddly comforting. The room was dimly lit, with the faint glow of something that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I couldn't help but wonder if I was alone. There was no sign of life, no dust, no cobwebs, no indication that anyone had ever lived here. Yet, everything was perfectly in place, as though it had been untouched for years, or perhaps centuries. As I walked deeper into the house, I felt a strange pull, as though something was drawing me forward. It was subtle at first, but soon it became overwhelming. The walls seemed to hum, a quiet, low vibration that seemed to resonate within my chest. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was unsettling, like being on the edge of something unknown. I followed the pull, unable to resist. I found myself in a small room at the back of the house. The air was cooler here, and the walls seemed to shimmer, almost as if they were alive. The room itself was bare, save for a large mirror that stood against one wall. The mirror was unlike any I had ever seen. Its frame was old, worn with age, but the glass was clear, flawless, reflecting the room perfectly. But when I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw a different place, a world that was not my own. In the reflection, there was a forest. Tall, twisted trees that reached toward a sky filled with swirling clouds. The ground was covered in moss, and the air was thick with fog. It was a place of strange beauty, a world that seemed to pulse with life, but it was unlike anything I had ever known. I reached out to touch the glass, and as my fingers brushed against it, something strange happened. The air around me seemed to warp, and a sudden chill ran through my body. The mirror. It wasn't just a reflection, it was a doorway. Before I could fully comprehend what was happening, the room shifted. The walls began to pulse in time with my heartbeat, and the floor beneath me seemed to sway as if the house itself was shifting, taking me somewhere else. Suddenly, I felt myself being drawn toward the mirror. My feet moved on their own, and I couldn't stop myself. I was no longer in control. With a sudden lurch, I was pulled into the mirror. Everything around me changed. The room was gone, replaced by the dense forest from the reflection. The air was thick with fog, and I could barely see more than a few feet in front of me. I stumbled, disoriented, my heart racing as I looked around. I was no longer in the floating house. I had crossed over. The world I had stepped into was alien, a place of strange beauty and even stranger danger. The trees loomed over me, their gnarled branches twisting like dark fingers. The ground beneath my feet was soft, spongy, like stepping on a thick carpet of moss, and the air, it was cold, but not in the way I was used to. It felt ancient, as though it had been here long before me and would remain long after I was gone. I was no longer in control. The pull, the overwhelming sense of something guiding me, had become too strong. I was on a path now, and there was no turning back. I didn't know where I was or what awaited me in this strange world. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to make it back the way I came. The house was only the beginning. I don't know how much time passed before I realized that I was no longer in control of my own body. The moment I crossed through the mirror, everything changed. The world I had stepped into wasn't just unfamiliar. It was alive, breathing in ways I couldn't comprehend. The air felt thick with an ancient presence, as if the very atmosphere had been waiting for me to arrive. The fog swirled around my feet, curling like tendrils that seemed to reach for me, pulling me deeper into the forest. The trees towered above, their twisted branches clawing at the dim sky. The ground beneath me was soft, as though I were walking on a mattress of moss, but there was something unsettling about it. It was too quiet, too still. Not even the wind dared to stir. I tried to gather my thoughts, but the silence pressed against me, heavy and suffocating. My breath caught in my throat, the weight of the unfamiliar world bearing down on me. I looked back, expecting to see the floating house, the place where I had come from. But it was gone. The house had vanished without a trace. It was as though it had never existed in the first place. The only thing I could see was the dark forest stretching endlessly in every direction. I had no idea where I was or how I was supposed to get out. Panic began to claw at the edges of my mind, but I fought it back. I couldn't afford to lose control, not here, not in this place. I forced myself to move, my feet carrying me forward despite the growing sense of dread that gnawed at my insides. The path was unclear, winding and narrow, leading me deeper into the heart of the forest. There was no trail, no indication of where I should go or what I might find. But something inside me, something that felt both terrifying and inevitable, pushed me forward. As I walked, I began to notice strange things in the air, flickers of light like fireflies dancing just out of reach. They weren't like any insects I had ever seen, though. They had no wings, no bodies, just glowing orbs that pulsed with an eerie, unnatural light. They hovered and darted around me as if they were guiding me or perhaps watching me. I reached out instinctively, but they vanished the moment I moved. They were nothing more than fleeting shadows, teasing me with their presence. The deeper I went into the forest, the more I felt like something was watching me. A sense of being pursued lingered in the back of my mind. Every rustle in the leaves, every creak of the trees sent my heart racing. I wasn't alone here. Someone was waiting for me. I stumbled, my foot catching, on a root hidden beneath the moss. As I fell to my knees, my hands plunged into the soft earth, and that's when I saw it. At first, it was just a shadow, a fleeting shape in the corner of my vision. But when I looked closer, I saw it clearly. A figure, barely visible, standing motionless between the trees. Its form was almost human, but something about it felt wrong. Its outline flickered, shifting in and out of focus, as if it was a part of the mist itself. I froze, unable to look away. The figure didn't move, didn't speak. It simply watched me, its presence pressing against me like a weight on my chest. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. Part of me wanted to run, to turn and flee back, the way I came. But another part of me, something deep inside, urged me to stay. There was no escaping this. Whatever this place was, whatever this being was, I had been chosen, and there was no turning back. For what felt like an eternity, the figure and I remained locked in a silent stare. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the figure raised its hand. The movement was so subtle, I almost thought I imagined it. But when it happened again, my blood ran cold. The figure was beckoning me. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to move. A single step closer to whatever that thing was, but my feet, betraying me, began to move. The pull was too strong, too overwhelming. My body had already made its decision, and I was powerless to stop it. With each step, the figure became clearer, its form solidifying in the mist. I could now see it in full, a tall, thin creature draped in tattered robes, its face obscured by shadows. It had no eyes, no mouth, only a smooth, featureless surface where its face should have been. It was a being made of nothing but darkness, yet it felt ancient, like something that had been here long before I arrived. The closer I got, the more I could feel its presence. Heavy, suffocating. It was as though the very air was bending around it, warping to its will. And then, just as I was within arm's reach of the figure, it spoke. But it didn't use words. Instead, the voice echoed directly in my mind, a cold, distant whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. You have entered the threshold. The journey has begun. There is no return. The words reverberated through my skull, freezing me in place. I wanted to scream, to run, but the force of its voice held me still, locked in place like a puppet on a string. And then, without warning, the figure turned and began to walk away, its long, shadowy form disappearing into the mist. Without a second thought, I followed. I had no choice. I walked through the mist, my feet moving on their own, as if I were being led by an unseen force. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very ground beneath me was testing my resolve. The trees loomed over me like silent guardians, their gnarled branches twisting and reaching, blocking out any light. The air was thick with an almost tangible weight, pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. I kept telling myself that I was in control, that I could turn back, that I could make it out of this strange place. But the further I walked, the more that voice in my head, faint at first, grew louder. It whispered secrets I couldn't understand, promises I couldn't remember. Every word made the path ahead seem less like a journey and more like an inevitable descent into something darker. I came to a clearing in the woods. At first it seemed empty save for the mist swirling around my feet. But then I saw it, a figure standing in the center of the clearing. This time, there was no mistaking it. It was the same being from before, the one with no face, no features. But something was different now. It was no longer motionless. The figure moved toward me slowly, almost as if it were floating rather than walking. Its robes billowed around it despite the stillness of the air. The sight was unnerving, a living nightmare, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. It beckoned me again, its movements smooth, deliberate. I felt an inexplicable compulsion to follow, to step forward, though every instinct screamed at me to run. But I was rooted to the spot, my body refusing to obey my mind. The creature's hand reached out toward me, its long, slender fingers stretching in my direction. It stopped just short of touching me, its palm facing outward as if offering something unseen, a silent invitation. I took a hesitant step closer, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I had no choice but to obey, to continue following this being that seemed to be guiding me, or perhaps trapping me, into whatever lay ahead. But as I approached, something shifted in the atmosphere. The ground beneath my feet trembled and a low, resonant hum filled the air. It was as if the very fabric of reality was being stretched, pulled apart. The figure's voice echoed again in my mind, colder now, more urgent. You are near the threshold, you must understand. There is no turning back. The words filled me with dread, but they also made something click inside me. This was no longer about simply escaping or finding a way back to the house. This was something far larger, something far more dangerous than I could comprehend. I had been brought here for a reason, and the more I resisted, the more I felt the force of the place pulling me forward. Suddenly the figure turned, its robes flowing around it as it moved towards a structure just ahead. A towering ancient gateway covered in vines and shrouded in mist loomed in the distance. It seemed to pulse with energy, vibrating in rhythm with the hum that filled the air. I followed without thinking, drawn by some invisible force. As I reached the threshold, I stopped for a moment, staring at the gateway. It was as if it were waiting for me, and I knew that crossing it would be the final step. There would be no going back from this. The figure didn't pause. It walked through the gateway, disappearing into the shadowed arch. I followed, my legs moving mechanically, each step taken in complete surrender to the force that guided me. As I crossed the threshold, the world around me changed. The air grew colder, the mist thicker. It felt like I was no longer in the same reality. Everything was distorted, twisted in ways I couldn't understand. The trees that had once seemed so tall now looked like dark silhouettes bending unnaturally. The sky overhead was a sickly shade of purple, swirling with clouds that seemed to pulse like living things. And then I saw it. In the distance, just beyond the edge of the mist, a shape appeared, a towering structure unlike anything I had ever seen. It wasn't a house nor a castle, but something far older. The walls were made of jagged stone, etched with symbols I couldn't decipher. The air around it seemed to hum with a strange energy, as though the building itself was alive. The figure had stopped, waiting for me to catch up. It turned its featureless face towards me, and though it had no eyes, I could feel its gaze, as though it were watching me, studying me. A chill ran down my spine as it motioned for me to enter the structure. Hesitated for a moment, my heart racing. There was no going back now. The doorway loomed in front of me, and though every part of me screamed to turn around, I knew I had no choice. I stepped forward, and then everything went dark. The darkness was suffocating, wrapping around me like a living thing. I couldn't see anything, not even my own hand in front of my face. The air was still, but it felt thick, like I was submerged under water and I could barely move. My pulse raced as I tried to gather my bearings, but the world felt wrong. I tried to speak, but my voice felt muffled, like the very act of sound was being swallowed by the blackness. The hum I had heard earlier was now louder, vibrating through my bones. It seemed to come from all directions, filling the space with an oppressive pressure. I wasn't alone, I could feel it. Something else was here with me. A low whisper broke the silence. It wasn't a voice I recognized, but it was close, too close, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. The words twisted through the air, crawling into my mind, and I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The voice was not comforting. It was commanding, like it was telling me to do something, to move, to follow. But I couldn't. I was paralyzed, trapped in this suffocating void. Then, suddenly there was light. A faint flickering glow appeared ahead of me, growing stronger with every passing second. The darkness didn't dissipate entirely, but the light fought through it, beckoning me forward. I had no choice. My body moved toward it, as if my feet were guided by an unseen force, and I stepped toward the faint glow. As I moved forward, the landscape around me began to shift. The mist cleared slightly, and I could make out shapes in the distance. Twisted figures standing still in the shadows. They were watching me, their faces featureless, their eyes dark pits. I wanted to look away, but something in me kept me rooted to the spot. I couldn't ignore them, even as their presence filled me with dread. The light grew brighter, illuminating what lay ahead. And then I saw it, a vast, towering structure, not unlike the one I had seen before. But this one seemed different, more alien. Its walls were covered in strange markings that pulsed with a strange energy, and its doors were wide open as though inviting me in. The voice in my mind returned, but this time it was different. The tone had changed, becoming more insistent, more urgent. You are at the threshold. This is where it ends. I could feel the weight of those words pressing down on me, but I didn't understand them. What was it that was ending? What was waiting for me inside? Without thinking, I stepped inside. The air inside the structure was cooler, but still unnerving. The walls were covered in the same strange symbols, their glow pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I could feel the energy in the air, almost like static electricity, charging the space around me. It felt like the walls were alive, reacting to my presence. I moved deeper into the building, the light from outside fading as I left it behind. The atmosphere inside was stifling, filled with an overwhelming sense of weight and power. The further I walked, the more I felt like I was walking through a living, breathing organism. The walls seemed to shift, their surfaces rippling like the surface of water. And then I saw a figure standing in the center of the room. It was the same figure I had seen before, the one with no face. It was waiting for me, standing tall, its presence filling the room with an air of finality. The silence between us was thick, oppressive. "You have reached the end," it said, its voice now clear and resonant, echoing through the chamber. "This place, this world, it is a reflection of your own soul. You cannot return. This is your final journey." I stood frozen, my mind racing. Was this it? Was I trapped in this place forever? Was there no way back to the house, to my world? The figure raised a hand and the room around me shifted once again. The walls seemed to bend and stretch, distorting into impossible shapes. I felt my body being pulled, stretched, as though the very fabric of reality was being torn apart. "You are the chosen one," the figure said, its voice becoming a low, almost melodic hum. "You have entered the threshold, but you cannot leave without understanding." The room around me began to disintegrate, the walls crumbling into dust. The floor beneath me vanished, and I felt myself falling, deeper and deeper into an abyss. The air was cold, the darkness absolute. My heart pounded in my chest and I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the void. And then, just as suddenly, as it began, everything stopped. I opened my eyes. I was standing outside the house, the floating house, the one I had entered what felt like a lifetime ago. But it was different now. The mist had cleared, and the night sky above me was calm, serene. The house, once hovering in the air, was now still, anchored to the ground. The gateway, the one I had passed through, was gone. I looked around, my mind racing to make sense of what had just happened. Had it all been a dream? Had I imagined the entire journey? Or had I truly crossed into another world? I didn't know. All I knew was that I had crossed a threshold, and now I stood at the edge of something far greater, something I could never fully understand. The journey had ended, but the mystery of what lay beyond it would never leave me. As I turned and walked away, the wind whispered through the trees, and I could hear the faintest echo, a voice that seemed to come from nowhere. "Thy journey is never truly over." And that was the last thing I heard. Story 3. The Spectral Painting. Portrait of the Past. What if a painting could trap your soul? I had always been the type of person who couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. While others turned away from dark alleys and abandoned places, I walked straight into them, drawn like a moth to a flame. That's how I found the house on the outskirts of town. It was a place that no one spoke of aloud. A place that was as much a part of the town's whispered rumors as it was a relic of the past. The house had stood abandoned for as long as I could remember, its cracked windows like hollow eyes staring blankly out into the overgrown yard. The grass had long since overtaken the stone path leading to the door, and vines crept up the walls as though the house itself were trying to hide from the world. Yet there was something about it, something in the way the wind sighed through its broken windows that seemed to call me. I didn't know why I was drawn to it. Maybe it was the way the shadows seemed to move in the corners of the house, or maybe it was the strange feeling that time itself had stopped there. But I knew one thing for sure: I had to go inside. I don't remember exactly how I opened the door. It was heavy, ancient, and seemed like it hadn't been touched in decades. But somehow I managed. The door creaked loudly as it opened, breaking the silence that had settled over the house like a thick blanket. Dust hung in the air, illuminated by a single beam of sunlight coming through a cracked ceiling, and the smell of decay was almost overpowering. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness of the house. The floorboards groaned beneath me, and the air was thick with the scent of mildew and old wood. It felt as if the house had been waiting for me, waiting for someone to disturb its slumber. I slowly made my way through the rooms, each one more dilapidated than the last. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and the furniture, what little was left, was covered in thick layers of dust. There were no signs of life, no signs of anyone having been here for years. Yet, as I walked deeper into the house, I began to feel an unsettling presence. It was as if someone, was watching me. The silence grew heavier, and I found myself holding my breath, not out of fear, but because something in the air seemed to demand it. I moved through the house with deliberate caution, unsure of what I was looking for, but knowing that something important awaited me. That's when I found it. The painting. It was tucked away in a small, dimly lit room at the far end of the hall. The door was barely hanging on its hinges, and I had to push it open carefully to avoid it falling off completely. Inside, the room was strangely untouched by the decay that had overtaken the rest of the house. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, but the center of the room was dominated by an old, gilded frame. The painting was large, nearly life-size, and it depicted a family, standing in front of a house that looked strikingly similar to the one I was in. Their faces were obscured by shadows, their features too vague to make out clearly. But even so, there was something chilling about them, something that made my skin crawl. As I studied the painting more closely, I began to feel a strange sensation. The family in the painting, though motionless, seemed to be staring directly at me. Their eyes, though barely visible, followed me as I moved around the room. I couldn't shake the feeling that they knew I was there, that they were aware of my every movement. I reached out to touch the painting, my fingers brushing against the cold, cracked surface of the frame. The moment my hand made contact, a jolt ran through me, sharp and sudden, as if the very fabric of the room had shifted. My breath caught in my throat, and I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't just the sensation that unsettled me, it was the voice. Soft, faint, but unmistakable. A whisper that seemed to come from the painting itself. "Help us," it said, so quietly that I wasn't sure if I had imagined it. I blinked, staring at the faces in the painting, but they remained eerily still. The whisper came again, louder this time, as if urging me to do something. "Please, help us." I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It wasn't possible. A painting couldn't speak, could it? I backed away, my legs feeling weak, and I stumbled over an old chair behind me, catching myself just before I fell. The voice was still in my head, echoing like a distant memory. "Trapped. We are trapped. You must help us escape." I looked back at the painting, my breath quickening. The family's eyes were more intense now, as though they were pleading with me, their frozen expressions shifting ever so slightly. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I could see it. A change in the way their eyes glistened, a deepening of the shadows around their faces. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog that seemed to be clouding my mind. I had to be imagining things. It had to be some trick of the light, or the isolation of the house had gotten to me. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. There was something about the painting, something about this place that was far beyond my understanding. I took a step closer, my curiosity overtaking my fear. The closer I got to the painting, the more the air around me seemed to thicken, as if the room itself was closing in. I reached out again, this time touching the canvas with my bare fingers. The moment I did, I felt a sharp tug, as though something deep within the painting had grabbed hold of me. "Find the truth," the voice whispered again, its urgency growing stronger. "Only then can we be free." I jerked my hand back, my heart racing. I could feel the weight of those words pressing on me, pulling me toward the mystery of the painting, toward whatever it was that had trapped these people within it. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, but I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't just walk away. I couldn't leave them like this. And so I made a promise to myself. I would find out the truth. I would uncover the secrets of the painting, of the house, and of the family trapped within its frame. But as I turned to leave the room, the air grew cold, and the door slammed shut behind me. My pulse raced as I realized this was only the beginning. Whatever had brought me here, whatever dark force had awoken in this house, had no intention of letting me leave. It had been days since I first encountered the painting. Days filled with restless sleep and disturbing dreams. The whisper from the painting echoed in my mind louder and louder with each passing hour, as if it were trying to claw its way into my thoughts. "Help us. Help us." I couldn't shake it. I tried to distract myself, to push it out of my mind, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, the family from the painting. Their eyes, those pleading eyes, stared back at me. The longer I stayed away from the house, the more it felt like they were following me, waiting for me to return. I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to go back. There was something I was missing, something that the painting was trying to tell me, something that went beyond the surface of the image. The wind howled outside as I stood at the threshold of the house once more. The house seemed to be watching me, as if it recognized me now. I could feel the weight of its gaze pressing down on me, urging me to enter. It was as if the house itself had come alive with the promise of something hidden within its walls. The door creaked open with a familiar groan, and I stepped inside. The air felt different this time, colder, heavier. It wasn't just the decay or the dust. No, there was something else. A presence that lingered in the shadows, watching, waiting. I moved quickly through the house, my footsteps echoing in the silence, until I reached the small room with the painting. The painting was just as I had left it, still and unmoving, but I felt a shiver run down my spine as I stepped closer. I reached out to touch the frame again, but before my fingers could make contact, the whisper came again. Louder now, clearer. "The truth is hidden in the past." The voice was like a breath against my ear, but when I turned around, no one was there. I stood frozen, my heart racing, as the weight of those words settled into my chest. What did it mean? The truth? The past? Was there something about this house, about the family and the painting, that I didn't understand? I couldn't just stand there. I had to know. With trembling hands, I grabbed the painting by the edges and pulled it from the wall. It was heavier than I expected, the frame cold to the touch, as if it had been frozen in time. I felt an unsettling sensation pass through me as I turned the painting around, and then I saw it. On the back of the painting, in faded, almost illegible writing, was a name, Evelyn Vale. The name sent a shiver through me, though I couldn't explain why. It was as if the name had some kind of weight to it, something that resonated deep within me. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the name, Evelyn Vale. I had never heard the name before, but something about it seemed familiar, like a half-remembered dream. I had to find out more. I turned the painting back around, My gaze locked on the faces of the family. The whisper came again, this time with more urgency. Evelyn knows. She knows the truth. I felt a strange pull in my chest. A sensation like gravity was pulling me closer to the painting. I leaned in, my breath fogging up the glass as I studied the figures more closely. The family was standing in front of the house. The same house I had walked into, the same house I now stood in. But there was something else in the background of the painting, something that I hadn't noticed before. Behind the family, just barely visible in the shadows, was a figure, a shadowy form that seemed to fade into the walls of the house. I could barely make it out, but the figure seemed to be watching the family just as I had watched them when I first laid eyes on the painting. The figure wasn't part of the family. It wasn't a member of the household. It was something else. Something wrong. I backed away from the painting, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't just a painting. It was a record of something much darker, something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. The house wasn't just haunted by the spirits of the family. It was haunted by something else, something that had been waiting. The air in the room grew colder, and I heard a faint rustling sound like whispers coming from the corners of the room. My breath caught in my throat as I realized that the whispers weren't just in my mind anymore. They were coming from the house, from the walls, from the very air around me. Find her. Find Evelyn. Only she can set us free. The voice was desperate, now filled with a sense of urgency and fear that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just a plea for help. It was a command. I turned back toward the door, my heart racing as I stepped out of the room. I couldn't stay here any longer. The house had become a trap, and I could feel the walls closing in around me. I needed to find Evelyn Vale. I needed to uncover the truth. But as I reached the hallway, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening crash. I spun around, my pulse quickening as I saw the shadows in the corners of the room begin to move. You can't leave. Not yet. The voice was no longer a whisper. It was clear, unmistakable, and it was coming from all around me. I ran, my feet pounding against the floor as I rushed toward the door, but it was no use. The house wasn't going to let me leave, not until I found the truth. I ran through the house, my heart pounding in my chest, the oppressive silence of the walls closing in on me. The air felt colder now, heavier with each step, and I could hear the whispers, soft, like a breeze, yet unmistakable. They were all around me, echoing from the shadows, urging me to find the truth. Don't leave, not yet. The voice came from everywhere, each syllable dripping with desperation. My legs moved of their own accord, carrying me deeper into the house, but the more I ran, the more I felt the weight of something watching me. Something not human. The shadows in the corners of the house seemed to stir, shifting as if alive, as though the very house itself was waiting for me to uncover what lay hidden within its walls. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape the feeling that the house had become alive, that it was no longer just a structure but something sentient, something that wanted something from me. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, each word a plea, an order. Find her. Find Evelyn. Only she can set us free. I tried to shake it off, tried to push the fear down, but I couldn't. It was as if my every thought was being invaded, hijacked by something darker than I could comprehend. I reached the hall, and then without warning, the door slammed shut, behind me with a deafening crash. I spun around, my pulse racing to see the shadows closing in, taking shape, becoming more than just darkness. You can't leave, not yet. The voice now had substance. It wasn't just a whisper in the corners of my mind anymore. It was clear, unmistakable. And it wasn't just one voice. It was many. overlapping, as if the house itself were speaking. To me, each whispering its own command. I felt the weight of their words press on me, urging me to turn back, to go deeper into the house. But I couldn't. I had to find Evelyn. I had to know the truth, whatever it was. The shadows seemed to grow larger, more solid, as if they were becoming physical beings. I took a deep breath, my fingers trembling as I reached out to open the nearest door. The handle was cold, colder than it should have been, like ice. But I twisted it and the door creaked open. Inside was a room I hadn't seen before. A small, narrow space with nothing but an old, dusty mirror on the far wall. The mirror was cracked, but in the reflection I saw something that froze my blood. There, standing just behind me, was a figure. A woman. Her face was pale, gaunt, her eyes empty pits of darkness, but I knew who it was. Evelyn. I spun around, but the room was empty. No one was there. Only the cold, oppressive air that seemed to have thickened with each passing moment. Evelyn. Where are you? I whispered. But the words barely left my lips before the whispers returned. Louder than ever. She knows everything. The words felt like they were clawing their way into my mind, tearing at the edges of my sanity. I could feel the house closing in on me, the walls pressing together, suffocating me. I backed away from the mirror, my hands shaking as I tried to steady myself. This wasn't just a house anymore, it was a prison. A trap. I had to find Evelyn, but I didn't know where to start. The painting, the name, Evelyn Vale. That was all I had. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. The room began to spin, the air thick with dread. I stumbled backward, feeling as though the very floor beneath me was shifting, as if the house itself was shifting, rearranging, pulling me deeper into its grip. And then, I saw it. On the floor beneath the mirror was a small, worn piece of paper. I crouched down and picked it up, my fingers trembling as I unfolded it. The writing was faded, barely legible, but one word stood out clearly. Evelyn. The name was scrawled, in hastily written ink, the edges of the paper torn as though it had been ripped from something larger. I glanced around the room, but there was nothing else. No clues, no answers, just the whispering, the pressing weight of something dark, something ancient. The air grew colder still. The whispers turned into frantic cries, desperate for release. Help us. Help us. I could hear the voices more clearly now, more distinct. The family from the painting, the ones who had been trapped for so long, the ones who had been pleading for help. And now it seemed they weren't the only ones. The house itself was alive with voices, with memories of something that had been buried long ago. I felt the pull again, the need to find Evelyn, to uncover whatever truth she held, whatever secret had been hidden from me. I had no choice. I had to go deeper. The house was colder than before. A chill crept down my spine as I stood in the hallway, staring at the door that had slammed shut behind me. I couldn't leave, not yet. There was something I still needed to find, something hidden beneath the layers of dust and decay. I felt a pull, like invisible hands guiding me through the darkness. My heart raced, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The whispers, they were growing louder again, surrounding me. They were no longer just in my head. They were everywhere. Find Evelyn. Find Evelyn, the voices chanted. It was like the house itself was alive, pushing me toward the truth. I had to find Evelyn Vale. There was no turning back now. I stepped forward, my feet moving faster than I could think. My breath echoed in the silence, loud and uneven. As I moved deeper into the house, the walls seemed to close in. The paintings on the walls, they were all staring at me, their eyes following my every movement. And then, I saw it. The door at the end of the hall. It was the door I hadn't noticed before, the one that had always been hidden in shadows. The door that seemed wrong. I couldn't explain it, but something about it felt out of place, like it didn't belong here. I reached out, my hand trembling as I touched the cold, decaying wood. It felt like the door was alive, breathing under my fingers, whispering, "This is it." I whispered to myself, but the words felt hollow, as if someone else had spoken them first. I had to open it. The handle turned easily, the door creaking open to reveal a small, dimly lit room. The air inside was thick, heavy with the scent of dust and mildew. But there was something else. A faint smell, like flowers, and something darker, like decay. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the room. The walls were covered in old wallpaper, peeling in places. The floor was cracked, with bits of the wood splintered and broken, but in the center of the room there was a table. On the table there was a box, a small wooden box. It looked old, like it had been there for years. I approached it slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. The whispers were now louder, filling, my ears urging me to open it. I couldn't resist. I reached out, my fingers brushing the smooth surface of the box. There was something written on it, something I hadn't noticed before. Evelyn's secret. I froze. The name Evelyn Vale. It was written right there on the box. This was it. The truth I had been searching for. I opened the box, my hands shaking. Inside there was a letter. It was old, the paper yellowed and torn at the edges. I pulled it out carefully and unfolded it. The words inside were barely legible, but I could make out a few phrases. She knew. Too much. The painting. A trap. Trapped us all. The letter didn't make sense, but I could feel the weight of it. The weight of the truth. I looked around the room, my eyes scanning the walls. That's when I saw it. In the corner, hidden, beneath a torn piece of wallpaper, was a small portrait. It was Evelyn. Her eyes, they were the same as the eyes in the painting. But there was something different about her, something that sent a chill down my spine. She was smiling, but it wasn't a smile of happiness. It was a smile of knowing, as if she had always known what would happen. I felt a pull toward the painting, my body moving of its own accord. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening. It's time. I stepped closer, my hand reaching out to touch the frame. As soon as my fingers made contact, the room seemed to shift. The walls began to twist and turn, the shadows closing in around me. The painting, it moved. The figures inside it shifted, their eyes turning to look at me, their faces now twisted in anguish. I stumbled back, my breath caught in my throat, and then I heard it. A voice. Help us. It was Evelyn's voice, but it wasn't just her voice, it was the voice of the entire family. They were calling to me, begging for help. But what could I do? The truth was in front of me, but it wasn't enough. The house had been waiting for me to uncover it, waiting for me to find Evelyn's secret. But now that I had, what was I supposed to do with it? I felt the room closing in, the walls pressing against me. The whispers grew louder, almost suffocating. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The house was silent. I stood in the center of the room, my heart racing, trying to make sense of everything. But I knew one thing for sure. Evelyn Vale was gone. The family was gone. But their secret, It was now mine to carry. I had uncovered the truth, but now I had to live with it. I turned and left the room, the whispers still echoing in my mind. The house was behind me, but I knew the truth would follow me wherever I went. The curse of Evelyn Vale was mine now, and there was no escaping it. Story 4. A Mystery of Lost Hours. Did you ever lose time and not know why? Mark hears his clock tick, but it's not the right hour. Mark lives in a small town in Wyoming. His house is old. His clock is older. It sits in the living room, quiet most days. But tonight, it ticks. It ticks loud. It ticks wrong. Mark watches TV. The clock reads 8:15. He blinks. The show is over. He checks again. The clock now says 9:47. Soft breath. Where did the time go? He checks his phone. Same time. Did he sleep? No. He remembers the full episode. He remembers eating. He remembers the ticking. The next morning, Mark walks to the diner. Rain taps his hood. He smells wet earth. Inside, he sees Anna. She works the morning shift. Rough night? She asks. Mark nods. Yeah, clock's weird. Anna laughs softly. Get a new one, she says. But Mark likes the old clock. It was his grandfather's. It never stopped, never moved wrong, until now. He returns home. The clock ticks again. Tick, 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 but the sound is strange. It's not steady. It speeds up, slows down. He leans close. He hears something else. A faint voice, a laugh. He steps back. His phone rings. It's from work. Hey, says his boss. You okay? Mark frowns. Why? You missed yesterday. No call. What? I was off Tuesday. Today is Thursday. He freezes. What happened to Wednesday? Whispers. Paranormal story. Again, Mark drops the phone. He runs to his bedroom. His calendar says Tuesday, but his emails say Thursday. His fridge is missing food. Did he cook? Did he eat? He doesn't remember. He sits on the couch and breathing hard. His fingers shake. The clock ticks loud again. He tries to record it, but the audio is blank. Nothing but static. He plays it back. Still static. Then, a whisper, whispering. Tick, tick. Trade. Mark rewinds. Nothing. Plays again. Same whisper. He feels cold. The room is warm, but his skin is cold. He stares at the clock. Its hands move backward. 1 full minute, then forward again. He runs to the hardware store. He buys a new battery. He replaces it. Still ticks wrong. That night, Mark doesn't sleep. He watches the clock. Every tick echoes at 2:09 a.m. He blinks. He wakes at 5:33 a.m., still in his chair, still dressed. What happened? The clock ticks. Calm now. Too calm. He opens the back panel. Dust, old gears, and a note. Yellow paper, old ink, 1 line. Time takes what you forget. His hands tremble. He reads it again. Then, knock knock. He freezes. Who knocks at 5:30 a.m.? He walks to the door, opens it slowly. No one. But on the porch, his missing groceries wet, cold, still in their bags. He turns back inside. He feels eyes. Behind him, soft whisper. Tick, tick. You gave a day. Mark slams the door, locks it. The clock ticks again, and it smiles. Not a joke. The second. Hand forms a grin. He steps back. What are you? he says. The room answers, "Scary stories for sleep. Start now." Michael opens his eyes. The light looks wrong. The clock says 8:12 a.m., but the calendar says Friday. He blinks. Yesterday was Monday, right? He sits up slowly. The room feels too clean, too still, whispering. I didn't sleep 4 days, but his phone agrees. It's Friday. He touches his face. His beard is longer. His hands are shaky. His heart beats fast. Too fast. Michael walks into the kitchen. The coffee pot is empty, but warm. He checks the trash. Inside, wrappers from things he didn't eat. Did I go out? He wonders. There's a faint smell of lemons. He hates lemons. He hears ticking, that same old sound. The grandfather clock ticks in the hallway. Ticking continues. It never stopped. He steps closer. Each tick feels louder. Each one pokes at his memory. He stands in front of the clock. Its hands point to 8:13 now. He opens the glass. The wood is warm. He reaches out. Tick, tick. His fingers brush the pendulum. Suddenly, sound of breath. His head spins. His legs give out. He falls. Then, silence. When he opens his eyes again, he's outside. The sun is high. He is standing at the local diner. "Michael?" a voice says. It's Clara, the waitress. She looks confused. "You were just here," she says. "I was?" he asks. "Yeah," she says. "You left 5 minutes ago. Said you were heading home." He blinks. "Clara, what day is it?" She frowns. "Still Friday. Are you okay?" He nods, but it's a lie. He looks down at his shirt. It's stained with something. Something dark. Back at home, Michael showers, in silence. The water runs cold. Every drop feels sharp, like the clock is watching. He finds a journal beside his bed. He didn't put it there. He opens it. Inside, his handwriting. But he doesn't remember writing any of it. Thursday, don't. Trust the time. It moves when I don't. I lost 6 hours again. Wednesday. The clock knows. The pendulum speaks. It shows me things. Bad things. Tuesday. Someone knocked last night. 3 times. I didn't open. Michael closes the book. His hands shake. He checks the front door. Scratches. 3 of them. Near the handle. "Who came here?" he whispers. The air smells like dust now. And something faint. Like burnt toast. He returns to the hallway. The clock ticks calmly. He leans closer. "Are you doing this to me?" he asks. The clock doesn't answer. But the pendulum swings slower, then faster, then still. Ticking stops. Michael feels the house go quiet. He can hear his own breathing. Soft whisper. "You're almost ready." He spins around. No one is there, but the whisper lingers in the air, like smoke that doesn't fade. He runs to the attic. His father kept old things there, boxes, newspapers. He finds a black and white photo. A man, standing beside the same clock. Under it, June 1945, Elias Cooper. Michael gasps. That's his grandfather. He flips the photo. Words on the back. "It began again when I touched it. Beware the 4th knock." Michael drops the photo. He turns. Something moves behind the boxes. A shadow. Long and slow. He freezes. "Who's there?" he whispers. No answer. But the ticking starts again. Faster now. He races downstairs. The clock strikes once, twice, 3 times. 4. Sound of something unlocking. The wall beside the clock slides open. A dark hole appears, and a cold wind flows out. Michael steps back, his breath fogs. The voice returns, this time clearer, softly. Enter and remember. He looks down. His feet move on their own. He steps forward, into the dark. Behind him, the wall closes, and the clock ticks once more. Michael steps into the dark. The air is cold and thick. He can't see his hands. He hears only the clock ticking. Tick, tick. He reaches out. His fingers touch stone. A wall. Wet and cold. He walks forward slowly. Each step echoes. He whispers, quietly, "Where am I?" Suddenly, a soft light appears ahead. It glows blue like moonlight trapped in glass. He follows the light. It leads him to a small room. The walls are gray. The floor is cracked. In the middle, a table. On it, another clock. But this one is strange. It has no hands, just a face, with symbols, circles, arrows, and something else. A small glass vial. Inside, dust, glowing blue dust. He picks it up. The dust moves, like it's alive. Suddenly, a memory hits him, his birthday. Age 12. His grandfather gave him a gift, a pocket watch. Old, heavy, soft voice. Time is not straight, Grandpa had said. It bends, if you let it. Michael blinks. The memory fades. He places the vial back, then sees it on the wall. A large mirror. He walks toward it. His reflection moves, but not the same. His face looks older, tired. Then it smiles, but Michael does not. He steps back. "What is this place?" he asks. The mirror answers, soft whisper. "This is our room." Michael freezes. "Who said that?" The reflection speaks again. "Time lives here. It watches, it feeds." He steps closer. "Feeds on what?" The mirror shows images. His face, sleeping, walking, then gone. Days missing. "You lost time," the voice says. "You gave it away, without knowing." Michael clenches his fists. "Why me?" The voice replies, "You touched the pendulum. You opened the door." He looks around. "I want it back. My time." The reflection tilts its head. Time taken is not easy to return. Michael walks in circles. He feels dizzy. He smells something sharp, like old metal. He stops. "Then show me how to fix it." The mirror fades, then shows a woman, young, crying. "Mom," Michael says. She holds a clock. She whispers something, whispers. "Don't listen to the ticking." He reaches out. His fingers touch glass. Suddenly, a wind blows. The mirror shatters. The dust vial glows. The symbols on the clock start to move. Arrows spin. The walls shake. Michael falls to the ground. The room twists. Then silence. When he opens his eyes, he's back home, but it's dark, very dark. The clock in the hallway is gone. He runs outside. The street is empty. No cars, no people. The sky is red. He walks down the road. Signs are broken. Houses are silent. Then, a voice. "Michael." He turns. A child stands behind him. Barefoot, eyes glowing blue. "You broke it," she says. He steps back. "What do you mean?" You broke the hour room. He stares. I didn't mean to. She tilts her head. You let it out. He gulps. What did I let out? She points at the sky. A shape moves across the red clouds. Long, thin. It ticks. It's the sound again. The same from the clock. Tick. 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 The girl says, It's hunting now. Michael shakes his head. No, this isn't real. The girl vanishes. He runs back home, locks the door. He hears the clock again, but it's inside his head. He grabs his phone. The date says February 3rd, 2027. His heart stops. That's 2 years from now. He screams. What is happening? Suddenly, his body shakes. His fingers twitch. He sees flashes. Doctors. Lights. Hospital room. He lies in a bed. Machines beep. He blinks. Then hears voices. Michael, can you hear us? He tries to speak. No sound. A nurse leans in. You've been in a coma since 2025. His eyes widen. What? He thinks. Another voice. His sister. You fell. Hit your head. Nothing made sense. She cries. We almost lost you. Michael closes his eyes. The ticking is gone. He's safe. Or is he? Because then he sees it. The clock. In the hospital. Room old wooden. Its pendulum swings. Tick. Tick, tick. The hospital room is quiet. Too quiet. Michael stares at the clock on the wall. It's the same wooden one. The pendulum moves. Tick. 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 His heart races. Not again, he whispers. He tries to sit up. Pain shoots through his chest. The nurse walks in. You're lucky, she says. You came back to us. Michael tries to smile, but inside he's shaking. He looks again at the clock. It ticks slowly, but the sound is wrong. He remembers the red sky, the glowing-eyed girl, the shattered mirror. He remembers the hour room, the room behind time. He remembers losing days, weeks, years. Where is it? He asks. The nurse blinks. What, dear? The hour room, the pendulum, the dust. She frowns. Maybe you need more rest. But he shakes his head. No, I've seen it. I've felt it. She nods slowly, unsure, then leaves the room. Michael stares again at the clock. The tick is louder now, too loud. Then, a gust of cold air fills the room. The lights flicker. He hears footsteps, but no one enters. He turns his head slowly. In the corner, a shadow. Long, thin, moving. It stretches to the ceiling, then bends toward him. Michael closes his eyes. He whispers, "This is not real. This is not real." But the shadow speaks. A soft, low whisper. "You broke the rules." Michael opens his eyes. "Why me?" "You turned the clock. You stepped inside time." He swallows hard. "I didn't mean to." The shadow tilts. "You let it out." Michael remembers the vial. The glowing dust, the child's voice. "It's hunting now." He grips the bedsheets. "Why, can I fix it?" The shadow fades. Then from the hallway, footsteps again. His sister enters, tears in her eyes. "You're awake." Finally, Michael tries to smile. "I think I brought something back with me." She frowns. "What do you mean?" He points at the clock. She turns. "There's no clock, Mike." He freezes. "What?" She walks to the wall. Empty. Just white paint. But I see it, he whispers. It's ticking. Her eyes widen. Are you okay? He doesn't answer. He just listens. Tick, tick, tick. His sister leans in. You were in a coma. There was a fire in your apartment. The neighbors pulled you out. Michael nods slowly. I remember, but not all of it. She holds his hand. It's over now. He wants to believe her. He does. But then, he hears it again, not the clock. A voice. From the ceiling. Soft. Familiar. It's not over. Time is never over. His sister doesn't hear it, only he does. Later that night, he's alone in the room. The lights are off, but the eyes ticking remains. Michael closes his eyes. He tries to sleep, but then he wakes up and he's no longer in the hospital. He's in his apartment, but it's wrong. The colors are dull. The air is heavy. He looks outside. The sky is gray. No clouds, no sun, just gray. He looks at the kitchen clock. It's spinning. Fast. Too fast. He runs to it, grabs it. The moment he touches it, he's pulled into darkness. He lands hard on stone. He knows this place, the hour room. But it's different. Bigger. Colder. More clocks. Thousands. On every wall. All ticking, each one with a name. He walks down. A hallway. Clock faces blink. Show moments. Birthdays. Crashes. First kisses. Then, one clock chimes. Loud. Michael falls to his knees. His name is on the face. It turns red, then black. A voice booms. You broke the thread. He screams. I want to go back. No, the voice replies. You left your place. You touched too much. A door opens. A giant pendulum swings behind. It glows blue. It hums. Step in, the voice says, or stay here forever. Michael walks to the door. The ticking slows. He breathes deep. Then, he steps in. Light. Warmth. Voices. He opens his eyes. Back in the hospital again. But something is off. The clock is gone. For real this time. His sister smiles. You look different, she says. He nods. I feel different. The ticking, gone. No shadows, no dust, just silence. He goes home weeks later. His apartment is new, safe. He throws away every clock, every watch, even his phone's timer. Time. He doesn't trust it. Not anymore. One night he's sitting on the couch. Lights dim. TV off. He hears a sound. A soft knock. At the door. He stands. Opens it. No one there. But on the ground, a box. Inside, a clock. Wooden with a note. We ticked together once. Let's talk again. Michael drops it. Steps back. But before he can shut the door, it ticks. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. And he smiles. Just a little. Because part of him misses it, the room, the dust, the chase. And he wonders, was it real? Or did he dream it all? But then, the clock ticks again. Louder. And the sky outside turns red. Story 5. The Seeds of Tomorrow. Growth of the Unfathomable. Have you ever planted something that didn't feel normal? Mark did. And he learned some seeds grow more than roots. They grow truths no man should touch. The soil in Mark's backyard is soft. Too soft. Like it breathes. He kneels near the wooden fence. The bag in his hand says, "Ancient organic sampler. Tomorrow's harvest today." It came with no sender. He opens the bag. Inside are 6 seeds. Long, black, slick. They shine under the gray morning sky. They don't feel like seeds. They feel warm. He presses one into the ground, then another, then 4 more. The soil shivers. Mark stands up. He wipes dirt on his jeans. His hands itch. He returns to his house. The wind doesn't blow, but a single chime sounds on the porch. He doesn't have a chime. The next morning, Mark walks to the garden. Sprouts. Overnight. Thick green stalks rise like fingers from the soil. He frowns. That's unfast. One plant has a red pod. It pulses. He leans closer, sniffing. Smells like metal. He hears something behind him. Rustling sound. He turns. Nothing there. Just grass and a small hole near the shed. Mark visits the local diner. Darla, the waitress, smiles cheerfully. "Hey, stranger. What's got you up early?" "Something's growing in my yard." "Like weeds?" "No," he says. "Like science fiction." She laughs, but her smile fades when he shows her a photo. The red pod, the black stalks, whispers. "That's not right." "What do you mean?" She leans in. "My dad saw plants like that once, out by Route 7. He said they moved at night." Mark raises a brow. "Plants don't move." Darla shrugs. "He died that year. Skin gone pale, like it was pulled from the inside." That night, Mark can't sleep. He hears a sound of something tapping. He walks downstairs, looks out the window. The plants now have leaves, but the leaves look like ears. Tiny, human-shaped. He blinks. Then he sees something worse. A root moves. It slithers back into the earth. Next morning, Mark digs one plant up. He pulls hard. It fights back, but he yanks it free. There's no normal root. Instead, it ends in a shape, a finger, flesh-colored, with a nail. It twitches. He drops it, stumbles back. His breath catches. He burns it, but the smoke smells sweet, like sugar and meat. Later, he finds something new. In the dirt, a tooth. Small, human, white. Mark's hands shake. What is this? Why here? Why me? At 3 a.m. he dreams, but the dream doesn't feel like a dream. He sees the garden. The plants speak, not with words, but with sounds. A low hum, like bees in reverse. Buzzing, reverse tone. He wakes up sweating. His ears bleed. The next day, a man stands at his fence. Old, thin, wearing overalls, eyes gray. "You planted them?" the man asks. Mark hesitates. "Yeah." "You shouldn't have." "Why?" The man taps his temple. "They grow more than roots. They grow memory." Mark stares. "Whose?" "Yours. Mine. Everyone's. They drink what we forget and grow what we hide." Mark tries to pull the rest out, but the garden fights back. Roots whip his legs. A pod opens. Inside is something like an eye. It looks at him, then it closes. Later, he finds a letter in his mailbox. No stamp. It reads, "What grows, knows. What knows, becomes." Mark burns it. The smoke forms letters in the air. He reads them out loud, then forgets what they said. But his mouth keeps moving. Midnight, rain falls. He hears his door creak. Then, steps, but no one enters. He Walks to the window. The garden now glows. A soft green light, like breath, like waiting. He walks outside. Barefoot. The grass is warm. He touches a pod. It pulses. He hears a voice. Not in the air. In his chest. Voice inside. Mark. Thank you. His eyes widen. What are you? We are what you lost. We are the seeds of tomorrow. He falls backward. The next day, Mark calls a botanist. The man arrives. He looks at the garden, then looks at Mark, quietly. This isn't botany. This is something else. Mark nods. I know. The man leaves. He never returns. That night, Mark finds a mark on his chest. A small circle, black. It pulses with his heart. He looks out the window. The plants are taller now. They sway, without wind. One pod opens. Inside is a face, his, but smiling. He locks the doors. But the plants don't care about doors. They grow inside now, through vents, through walls. One vine wraps around a family photo. It presses the faces flat. Mark tries to leave town. His car won't start. The engine is fine, but the tires are soft, made of leaves. A letter appears on his pillow. You gave us soil. We give you memory. You give us fear. We give you form. He screams. No one hears. The walls drink his voice. The soil outside is warm again, but now it's not breathing, it's watching. The days that followed felt wrong in ways Mark couldn't explain. Every morning he'd step into his garden, drawn to the strange plants growing there. They weren't just plants. They felt like something more, like they were waiting for something. As the days passed, Mark began to feel that he was the one being watched. The sound of the wind rustling through the branches had never been so eerie, not like this. It felt like the plants were listening too. Their growth wasn't normal and it wasn't natural. On the 5th day, Mark decided to get out of the house to clear his head. He drove aimlessly, hoping the fresh air would help him forget the bizarre happenings in his garden. But nothing worked. His mind kept circling back to the plants. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were always there, staring through his windows even when he didn't look. While driving, his car broke down in the middle of the road. He cursed under his breath, popping the hood and checking the engine. Everything looked fine, but the car refused to start. The tires, though, seemed soft, too soft. He bent down to inspect them, but as he did, his gaze fell to the ground beside him. A small black circle. It was etched into the dirt. His fingers brushed the earth. It was warm. Too warm. And it felt wrong. He quickly stood up, wiping his hands on his pants. He tried the car again, but it wouldn't budge. Mark took a deep breath and walked back home, his nerves on edge. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything was somehow connected. The plants, the strange warmth in the soil, the odd gnawing sense that something was growing beneath the surface, just waiting for him to notice. Later that day, he made his way to the local diner. He needed to talk to someone, anyone. Darla, the waitress, was there as usual, her smile a bit more strained than before. "Hey, stranger," she greeted, setting a cup of coffee in front of him. "What's got you up early?" "There's something wrong with my garden," Mark said, his voice tight. "Something's growing out there. Something strange. Like weeds?" Darla laughed, but Mark could tell she wasn't buying it. "No, not like weeds," he replied, showing her the photo of the plant with the pulsating red pod. Like something out of a science fiction movie." Darla's laughter died in her throat when she saw the picture. She leaned forward, her expression serious now. "Where did you find that?" "Right outside my house. Mark replied, his voice low. It's been growing fast. Way too fast. She looked at him, her eyes wide. My dad saw plants like that once, out by Route 7. He said they moved at night. Mark raised an eyebrow. Plants don't move. Darla's face paled. He said they did, and then that year he changed. His skin went pale, like it was drained from the inside. Mark's stomach churned. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. You mean the plants? They did that to him? Darla just shrugged, her face haunted. I don't know what happened, but after that, he was never the same. That night, Mark couldn't sleep. The sound that kept him awake wasn't the usual creaking of the house or the wind howling through the trees. It was a soft tapping, almost rhythmic. He sat up in bed listening, straining his ears for the source of the noise. He grabbed his flashlight and crept downstairs. He peered through the window into the garden. The plants had grown taller overnight, their leaves, shaped like tiny ears, twitching in the moonlight. Then, just as he was about to turn away, he saw something even worse. One of the roots shifted. It slithered back into the ground. Mark's breath caught in his throat. He stumbled back, the flashlight slipping from his hand. He didn't want to believe what he had seen, but there was no denying it. The plants were alive. The next morning, Mark could no longer ignore the terror creeping into his thoughts. He couldn't live with this uncertainty. He went into the garden, determined to dig up one of the plants, to see what was beneath the surface. He grabbed the first plant he could reach, pulling it from the soil with all his strength. It fought back, resisting with an unnatural force. His hand slipped, but he finally yanked it free. There was no root, not a normal one. Instead, what he found was a pale, flesh-colored finger, ending in a sharp nail. It twitched in his hand, like it had a mind of its own. Mark's heart raced. He dropped the finger and stumbled backward, gasping for air. He could feel his hands shaking as he fumbled for something to burn it with. The fire blazed quickly, but the smoke didn't smell like burning wood. No, it smelled sweet, like sugar and meat. He couldn't understand it. What was happening to his garden? Why was it changing him? Later that day, as if the earth had given him no choice, Mark found something new. In the dirt beside the plants, there was a small white tooth, human. He knelt down, trembling as he picked it up. It was too small to belong to an adult. What is this? He muttered to himself, his voice hoarse. Why is this here? Why is this happening to me? His hands shook, the tooth falling from his grasp as the cold dread sank deeper into his chest. That night, Mark dreamt. But it didn't feel like a dream. He was standing in the garden, surrounded by the plants. But these weren't just plants. They were speaking. Not with words, but with sound. A low hum, almost like bees buzzing in reverse. He could feel the hum vibrating in his bones. His head throbbed as he woke, his ears ringing, blood trickling from them. His body felt like it had been shaken awake from a nightmare, only to realize that the nightmare wasn't over yet. The next morning, Mark walked out into the garden once again. This time, an old man stood at the edge of his fence, staring at the plants with a somber expression. You planted them? The man asked, his voice raspy and dry. Mark nodded, hesitant. You shouldn't have, the man said, his eyes clouded with something dark. They grow more than roots, they grow memory. Mark frowned. Whose memory? The old man tapped his temple, his eyes wide with warning. Yours, mine, everyone's. They drink what we forget, and they grow what we hide. Mark couldn't shake the old man's words. They drink what we forget, and they grow what we hide. They echoed in his mind as he sat in his house, staring at the garden through the window. The plants had become taller, their twisted stalks reaching for the sky. The pods, now more numerous, were swollen and seemed to pulse with life. Every time Mark looked at them, he felt a tightening in his chest, as though they were drawing something from him, something he couldn't quite place. The soil beneath them seemed darker now, almost alive. He could swear that at night, he could hear a low, buzzing hum coming from deep within the earth, as if the garden was speaking to him. But Mark wasn't ready to let it take him. Not yet. That evening, Mark decided to visit Darla again. Maybe she could offer some insight into what was happening. She was, after all, the one who had mentioned her father's strange experiences with plants. He needed to know if this was just a coincidence or something more. As he walked into the diner, Darla looked up from the counter and smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "You look like you haven't slept in days." Mark slid into the booth across from her. "I haven't." She set a cup of coffee in front of him, but it wasn't warm. The steam had long since disappeared. "What's going on with your garden? You look different." He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. "I think I made a mistake. Something's happening out there, and I don't know how to stop it." Darla's eyes darkened. She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I've been thinking about what you said, and I remember my dad telling me something else. He said that when the plants grow like that, like the ones you've got, they don't just take memories, they take souls." Mark frowned. "What do you mean?" Darla's gaze flicked nervously to the door before returning to him. "He said that once the plants start growing, you can't stop them. They draw from the people around you, what they fear, what they regret, and when they're done, they take everything." Mark's stomach twisted into a knot. "But how do you stop them?" Darla's lips trembled. "You can't. Not unless you burn it all. Every last one of them. But that's not just the plants. You have to burn, Mark. It's the land beneath them. You have to scorch the earth itself." Mark stared at her, his mind racing. He had to act. There was no other choice. Later that night, Mark stood in front of the garden once again. The moonlight bathed the plants in an eerie, pale glow. He could feel the air grow thick as though something was pressing against him, suffocating him. The buzzing sound, the hum from deep within the earth, was louder now. He could almost hear whispers, faint and distant, coming from the roots. His heart hammered in his chest. The soil seemed to reach up, beckoning him. It was as if it knew he was there, waiting for him to make a move. Mark didn't want to do it. He didn't want to burn the garden, didn't want to destroy everything. But the old man's words and Darla's warnings were too clear. He had no choice. He had to get rid of it, before it was too late. He stepped closer to the plants, reaching for the first pod. His fingers brushed the surface, and instantly a cold, sharp feeling spread through his hand. The pod seemed to tighten around his grip as if it were alive. And it was. He could feel it. Something inside, something that shouldn't exist, was awakening. Mark pulled his hand away, gasping for breath. The buzzing sound grew louder. The plants shuddered as if they were alive and aware of him. He stumbled back, his legs weak beneath him. "Not yet," a voice whispered from within the earth. Mark froze. The voice wasn't his own, but it sounded familiar, as if it was his voice speaking to him. It was coming from the roots. He could feel it deep inside the soil, as if it were calling him. He reached for the matches in his pocket. His hands shook. As he struck one, the flame flickering in the darkness. He held it to the edge of the plant, his heart racing. The plant seemed to draw back, but then the fire caught. The flames spread quickly, crackling in the night. Mark stood back, watching the fire consume the plant. But instead of the usual scent of burning wood, there was something sweeter in the air. Something wrong. The smoke rose, twisting and turning, forming shapes in the air. Faces, eyes, lips. They watched him with silent, accusing stares. Then the ground trembled. Mark stumbled backwards, his feet slipping on the wet earth. The plants jerked violently as if fighting the fire. Their roots writhed, thrashing like something alive. The entire garden seemed to pulse, its veins moving beneath the surface. And then, it stopped. The ground was still. The fire burned on. Mark felt his pulse race. Had he done it? Had he destroyed them? But as he turned to leave, he noticed something. A shadow was moving in the corner of his eye. Slowly, the air grew colder. Mark glanced back at the garden, his blood running cold. The plants were still burning, but they were growing faster now. Roots twisted and stretched toward the sky, and the pods, now blackened, began to swell once more. They pulsed, and Mark realized this was just the beginning. The morning after the fire was silent. Mark stood at the window, staring out at the garden, his heart heavy in his chest. He had hoped, prayed, that the fire had destroyed whatever curse had taken root in his backyard. But as the sun rose, he saw the truth. The plants were still there, larger, stronger. They had grown overnight, their black stalks now reaching the tops of the wooden fence. The red pods, those ominous things that pulsed with life, had multiplied. They dotted the garden like sickly fruits, their surfaces slick and shining. Mark's breath caught in his throat. He had failed. He grabbed the shovel, his hands trembling. His mind was foggy, like he was moving through water. There was no choice now, he had to finish it. Whatever this was, it had to end here, in the earth that had given birth to it. He walked outside, stepping carefully over the grass that seemed to curl and twist beneath his feet. His bare skin prickled with a strange coldness, as if something unseen was watching him. As Mark began to dig, the soil felt different. It was no longer just soft. It was alive. The ground shifted beneath his feet, warm in some places, cold in others. He could hear it, the faintest of whispers, as if the roots themselves were speaking. He winced, shoving the shovel deeper into the earth. With a sickening crunch, the shovel hit something hard. He paused, his heart hammering in his chest. He dug around it, his hands now covered in sweat and dirt, his mind racing. Then, with a final heave, the object was free. A pod. A black, swollen pod. It wasn't like the others. This one was bigger. Its surface was slick, its veins pulsing like a living thing. Mark's stomach turned as he stared at it. And then, against his better judgment, he reached for it. As his fingers brushed the pod's surface, the world around him seemed to freeze. A voice, familiar and soothing, whispered in his ear, "Mark, you've come back." His blood ran cold. He knew that voice. He had heard it in his dreams. "No," Mark whispered, his hands trembling as the pod opened. Inside, a face. His own face, but not his own. This face was smiling, its eyes hollow. It was a perfect replica of him, but it was wrong. Its mouth curled up in a grin, and it spoke with a voice that sent shivers down Mark's spine. "You were always meant to return," the thing said. "You were always one of us." Mark stumbled, backward, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The earth trembled beneath him. The plants, those cursed things, had a life of their own. They weren't just feeding off his memories, they were feeding off him. The soil, the roots, the pods, they were all him. Mark felt his body go numb. He had become part of it, part of the thing growing in his yard. The voice inside him, his voice, began to echo, repeating words he didn't want to hear. We are what you lost. We are what you gave. We are the seeds of tomorrow. The plants surged, their roots breaking through the ground, twisting around Mark's legs, pulling him toward the center of the garden. He tried to scream, but his voice was swallowed by the hum, the low, buzzing hum of the earth. The world blurred around him. The ground pulled him deeper, swallowing him whole. The following morning, the neighbors came by. They had noticed the strange happenings. Mark's car left untouched, the windows dark. A few of them stood by the fence, looking through the slats, but no one dared to enter. The garden was silent now. Still, it had returned to normal, or what appeared to be normal. The plants had stopped growing. The pods no longer pulsed with life, but something was different. The air was heavy, thick with memories, with silence. They found Mark's house empty. The door stood ajar, but there was no sign of him. The only thing that remained was the garden. The same black stalks, the same red pods. But as the morning sun hit them, a faint, almost imperceptible movement could be seen. The roots stirred and the ground whispered. For Mark was no longer just a man. He had become part of the earth. The seeds of tomorrow had bloomed, and in the stillness of the garden, his face, his smiling face, watched them from the depths of the earth, hidden beneath the soil, waiting. And to this day, no one knows who or what was behind that final knock. Maybe it was just the wind, or maybe something else found its way inside. If stories like this keep your eyes tracing the shadows, you're not alone. Hit the like button before the darkness returns. Subscribe and we'll keep the stories coming. Real horrors that wait until you're half asleep, and then whisper your name. This is American Pulse and Paranormal. Sleep well, if it lets you.